My mother grabbed my arm in the church parking lot, her nails digging in hard enough to leave marks, and said the thing she'd been building to my entire life. "You're embarrassing your sister. Get out. Leave. You're not welcome here." I was standing in my bridesmaid dress, holding the bouquet I'd carried down the aisle 30 minutes earlier, and my mother was throwing me out of my own sister's wedding. Not quietly. Not privately. In front of 24 guests who'd stepped outside for air between the ceremony and reception. My crime? I'd told someone the truth when they'd asked. One guest, one question, one honest answer. And my mother decided that honesty was more dangerous than letting me stay. But 3 days later, she'd be standing on my doorstep with my father, both of them crying, begging me to write a check for $38,000. Because the wedding I'd been thrown out of had a bill they couldn't pay. And the daughter they'd humiliated in a church parking lot was the only one with the money to save them. They called me the embarrassment. They had no idea I was about to become their only option. Welcome back to Hidden Family Revenge, where the person they throw away is always the one they need most. If you've ever been publicly humiliated by family, this one's for you. Drop a comment and don't forget to subscribe. You have to understand what a family like the Harpers is in a town like ours. Appearances are everything. The right clothes, the right address, the right social circle. My parents built their entire identity on looking successful, even when the reality behind the curtain was duct tape and credit cards. My younger sister Brooke was the golden child. Beautiful, charming, engaged to a man whose family had actual money. The kind of money that came with a last name people recognized. My parents had been planning her wedding since she got the ring, and planning was a generous word for what they were doing. Obsessing. Performing. Spending money they didn't have to impress people who didn't care. I was the older sister. The practical one. I'd gone into finance, worked my way up to senior analyst at an investment firm, lived below my means, and saved aggressively. I wasn't flashy. I drove a paid-off car, and lived in a modest condo, and didn't buy things to impress strangers. Which, in my mother's world, made me the disappointment. "You make good money and you dress like a college student," she'd said more than once. "What's the point of success if no one knows you have it?" I told her the point was security. She told me I was boring. When Brooke got engaged, my mother announced the wedding would be the event of the year. Venue at the country club. Designer dress. Sit-down dinner for $200. Open bar. A budget that made my stomach hurt when I saw the estimates. I pulled my father aside one night and asked, gently, how they were planning to pay for it. He got defensive, told me they had it handled, told me not to worry about things that weren't my concern. But I'm a financial analyst. I know what debt looks like. I'd seen their mortgage statements lying on the counter during visits. I knew my father's business had been struggling. I knew they were leveraged to the breaking point already. "Dad," I said carefully, "this wedding is going to cost more than $60,000. Do you have that?" "We'll make it work," he said. "Your sister deserves a beautiful wedding." Translation: they'd borrow it. Or worse, they'd promise it and hope they could cover it later. I offered to help with planning, with budgeting, with finding less expensive options that would still be beautiful. My mother told me Brooke's wedding wasn't the place for my penny pinching. So I backed off. I wasn't going to fight them on how they spent money they didn't have. The wedding planning consumed the next 8 months. Every family dinner was centerpieces and seating charts. Every phone call was my mother updating me on details I hadn't asked about. Brooke was stressed, my mother was manic, and my father had gone quiet in the way men do when the bills are piling up and they don't know how to stop it. I was asked to be a bridesmaid. I said yes. I paid for my own dress, my own shoes, my own hair and makeup. I showed up to the rehearsal dinner and smiled through my mother's speech about how Brooke had always been destined for greatness. The night before the wedding, we were all at my parents' house, and a guest asked me in the kitchen if I was excited. I said yes. Then she asked, in the way people do when they're fishing for gossip, if my parents were really paying for all of this themselves. I should have lied. Should have smiled and said of course. But I was tired, and I'd had 2 glasses of wine, and the truth came out before I could stop it. "No," I said quietly. "They're financing most of it. But don't mention it. They don't want people to know." The woman nodded, and I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't.
She told someone.
That someone told someone else. And by the morning of the wedding, my mother had heard that I'd told everyone they were broke and humiliated the family and tried to ruin Brooke's day. None of that was true. But truth didn't matter. My mother had decided I was the villain, and she was looking for a reason to cast me out. She found it in the parking lot after the ceremony. I was standing with a group of guests, and she stormed up, face tight, voice shaking. "You told people we're in debt," she hissed. I told one person the truth when she asked. I said, "I didn't announce it. You embarrassed your sister. On her wedding day." "Mom, I didn't. Get out." She said it loud enough that people turned. "You're not welcome at the reception.
Leave.
Now."
Изцерta her.
My father was standing behind her, saying nothing. Brooke was inside, oblivious. And my mother was throwing me out in front of 24 people because I'd committed the unforgivable sin of honesty. I could have fought, could have made a scene. But I was standing in a parking lot in a bridesmaid dress, and everyone was staring, and I had just enough dignity left to walk away.
So I did.
I got in my car. I drove home. I took off the dress, hung it in the back of my closet, and sat on my couch in silence for 2 hours. Then I poured a glass of wine and let myself cry. Not because I'd missed the reception, because my mother had chosen a performance over her daughter. Again, my phone buzzed all night. Texts from cousins asking where I went. Texts from friends who'd heard what happened. I didn't answer any of them. I turned my phone off and went to bed. The wedding, from what I heard later, was beautiful. The food was perfect. The band was incredible. Brooke looked stunning. Everything my mother had wanted, she got. And then, 3 days later, it all came crashing down. My father called first. Tuesday morning, 9 a.m. I almost didn't answer. But something in the third attempt made me pick up. "We need to talk," he said. His voice sounded hollow. "About what?" "Can you come to the house?" "Dad, I'm not really interested in."
Please.
He'd never said please like that before. Like he was drowning. I went. Both of them were sitting at the kitchen table when I arrived. My mother looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. My father looked gray. "What's going on?" I asked. My father slid a piece of paper across the table. An invoice. From the wedding venue. $62,000. Due upon receipt. With a red stamp across the top. Payment declined. I read it twice. "Your payment didn't go through?" The check bounced. My father said quietly, "We don't have it." I looked between them. "You wrote a check for $62,000 that you knew wouldn't clear?" "We thought the loan would come through in time," my mother said, her voice barely audible. "The bank approved us, but the funding got delayed and the venue needed payment day of, and we thought we'd have it by Monday, but you don't." I set the invoice down. "So what happens now?" "The venue is threatening legal action," my father said. "If we don't pay within 7 days, they're filing a claim. It'll go public. It'll ruin us." There it was. The real fear. Not that they'd be in debt. That people would know. "We need $38,000, my mother said. She couldn't look at me. "The loan will cover the rest when it comes through, but we need $38,000 now to stop the lawsuit." I sat back in my chair. Let the number settle. $38,000. 3 days after throwing me out of the wedding in front of everyone I knew. "You want me to give you $38,000, I said slowly. "We'll pay you back," my father said quickly. "As soon as the loan—" "Stop," I said. "Both of you. Just stop." The room went quiet. "You threw me out of Brooke's wedding. In a parking lot. In front of 24 people. You called me an embarrassment. You told me I wasn't welcome. And now, 3 days later, you want me to write you a check for $38,000. My mother's face crumpled. "We made a mistake. We were stressed. Your father and I have talked, and we shouldn't have." "You didn't make a mistake," I said, voice calm. "You made a choice. You chose to protect your image over your daughter. And now your image is about to collapse, and you need the daughter you threw away to save it." My father put his head in his hands. "We're desperate, Claire. If this goes to court, everyone will know. The business, Our reputation. Everything we've built. Everything you've pretended. I corrected. You didn't build wealth, Dad. You built the appearance of it. And now the bill's due. I stood up. They both looked at me with something close to panic. I'll think about it, I said. We don't have time. You have 7 days. I'll give you an answer in 48 hours. I left before they could argue. I didn't need 48 hours to decide. I knew what I was going to do before I got to my car, but I needed them to sit with it. Needed them to feel what it's like to ask for help from someone you've humiliated and not know if they'll say yes. I went home. I reviewed my finances. I had the money. I'd been saving for years, living below my means while they'd been leveraging themselves into oblivion. $38,000 wouldn't ruin me. It wouldn't even significantly hurt me, but giving it without conditions would teach them nothing. So I called my lawyer, explained the situation, asked him to draft a document. He had it ready by the next morning. I called my father that afternoon, told him I'd give them the money. I heard the relief in his voice, the exhale of a man who'd been holding his breath for 2 days.
Thank you, he said.
Claire, thank you. We'll pay you back as soon as. There are conditions, I said. The line went quiet. I'm going to send you a document. It outlines the terms of the loan. You'll read it, you'll both sign it, and then I'll transfer the money. What kind of terms? My mother's voice on speaker now. The kind that makes sure this doesn't happen again, I said. The terms were simple. I'd loan them $38,000, interest-free, to be repaid over 3 years in monthly installments. Payments would be automatically deducted from my father's account. If they missed 2 payments, the full amount became due immediately, and I'd have the right to claim it against their assets. But that wasn't the part that mattered. The second part of the document was an apology. A written, signed statement that they had wrongfully removed me from my sister's wedding, that their actions were based on misplaced anger and poor judgment, and that they acknowledged the harm they'd caused. And the third part was a boundary. They would no longer make financial decisions that affected the family without being honest about their actual financial position. No more pretending. No more spending borrowed money to impress people. If they wanted my help in the future, they'd have to show me honest books first. My father called an hour after I sent it. Claire, this is a lot. It's a loan agreement and an apology, I said. If you want the money, you sign both. The part about our finances, about being honest, is non-negotiable. You want me to bail you out, you stop lying about where you stand. To me, to yourselves, to everyone. My mother got on the line. You're punishing us. No, I said. I'm protecting myself. You've proven you'll choose appearance over reality. I'm not giving you $40,000 just to watch you do this again in 2 years. We said we're sorry. Say it in writing. Sign the document. Or find another way to pay the venue. I heard my mother crying in the background. Heard my father trying to calm her down. And then, finally, he came back on the line. We'll sign it, he said quietly. The document came back that evening. Both signatures. The apology in my mother's handwriting, shaky but legible. I read it twice. It didn't undo the parking lot. Didn't undo 30 years of being the expendable daughter. But it was something. I transferred the money the next morning. My father called to confirm receipt.
Thanked me.
His voice was different.
Smaller.
He knew what this had cost, and I don't mean the dollars. We'll pay you back, he said. I know you will, I said. It's in writing. The venue was paid. The lawsuit was avoided. My parents' reputation survived. And I became the family's secret they'd never talk about at parties. The disappointing daughter who'd saved them from disaster. Brooke called a week later. She'd been on her honeymoon when everything happened. My parents hadn't told her any of it, but her new husband's family had questions about the delayed payment, and she'd pieced it together. Mom said you loaned them money, she said carefully. My parents make their payments. Every month, like clockwork. The automatic withdrawal hits, and I get a notification.
We don't talk about it.
We barely talk at all. I see them at holidays, and it's cordial, polite. But something broke in that parking lot that can't be fixed with a payment plan. They chose their image over their daughter, and now their daughter knows exactly what she's worth to them. $38,000 and terms. My mother tried once to smooth it over, to suggest we move forward and not dwell on the past. I told her we were moving forward. Forward just looked different than she wanted. I did. She didn't say how much. 38,000. Silence. Then, Jesus, Claire. They didn't have a choice, I said.
The check bounced.
The venue was going to sue. I didn't know, she said, and I believed her. I didn't know any of this was happening. I thought they had it covered. They wanted you to think that. Another silence. Then, quieter. Mom told me she kicked you out because you were spreading rumors about them being broke. I told one person the truth when she asked a direct question. I said, "That's not spreading rumors. That's refusing to lie." Brooke exhaled. I should have called you. After the wedding. I should have asked what happened. Yeah, I said. You should have. I'm sorry. It was the first apology I'd gotten that felt real. I let it sit. Your wedding was beautiful, I said finally. I'm glad you had a good day. I wish you'd been there. Me too. Forward meant boundaries. Meant honesty. Meant I'd help when I could, but I'd never again be the daughter who stayed silent while they lied. She didn't like it, but she didn't argue. I think about that wedding sometimes. About standing in the parking lot in my bridesmaid dress, holding a bouquet, being told to leave. About how small I felt. How humiliated. And then I think about 3 days later. About sitting at their kitchen table while they begged. About the power shift that happened when the person they'd thrown away became the person they needed most. I didn't gloat. Didn't make them grovel. I just set terms. Because revenge isn't making someone suffer. It's making sure they can't do it again. The loan will be paid off in 2 more years. And when it is, I'll have a decision to make about what kind of relationship I want with my parents going forward. Right now, I don't know the answer. But I know what I won't do. I won't pretend the parking lot didn't happen. Won't act like being the family ATM is the same as being their daughter. Some people are family because they act like it. Some are family because you're obligated to call them that. My parents fall somewhere in the middle now. I'll help them when they need it, but I won't sacrifice myself to maintain their illusions. Brooke and I are rebuilding. She started asking questions about money, about how I saved, about how to build security instead of just appearances. I think watching our parents nearly lose everything scared her. I hope it taught her something. I'm not the disappointment anymore. I'm the cautionary tale they don't tell at parties. The daughter who was practical when they were reckless, honest when they were performing, and solvent when they were broke. They threw me out of a wedding to protect an image. 3 days later, they begged me to save it. And I did. Not because I forgave them. Because I could afford to, and because watching them sign that apology was worth more than any reception. If your family has ever chosen their reputation over your dignity, remember this. You don't owe them the performance. You don't have to pretend it didn't hurt. And if they come back needing something only you can provide, you have every right to set the terms. I gave my parents $38,000. But more importantly, I gave it with conditions that forced them to face the truth they'd been running from. That appearances don't pay bills, and the daughter they underestimated was the only one capable of saving them. They wanted a beautiful wedding. They got one. And 3 days later, they learned exactly what it cost and who really paid for it. Some families love you unconditionally. Some love you when it's convenient. And some only realize your value when they need something you have, and they don't. Mine needed money. I had it, but I also had terms.
And dignity.
And the clarity that comes from being thrown away and realizing you were never actually the problem. The loan gets repaid monthly. The apology sits in a folder. And I sleep fine knowing I saved them, but I saved myself first. If this one hit close, share it. Tell me in the comments what your family begged you for after they pushed you away. And subscribe to Hidden Family Mysteries, where the ones they throw out always hold the keys to everything.